Hello, class, and welcome to Week 8 of our venture through the textbooks Introduction to Interdisciplinary Studies by Repko, Stozak, and Buchberger. In this week's discussion, we will build upon our understanding of perspectives and how a person's perspective will influence their decision making and their likely insights into that certain subject. To view my Week 7 discussion, please skip ahead to Chapter 7, labeled Week 7. In order to critically think about a subject, we must understand our viewpoint may alter other perceptions as well as our actions. Once we realize this, we can create unbiased and sound solutions. Every person may have a different perception of reality, so it is extremely important to interrogate the subject matter thoroughly in order to prevent costly errors. So, we know that people have different perceptions. This we know. This leads people to also having different insights. So you can almost say A plus B will equal C. So perception plus their insights will equal their solution. The most important thing we can do to make this equation be most acceptable would be to respect other people's viewpoints. So it's not constructive to dismiss someone's insights just because they may have a warped perception of reality. It is our job as interdisciplinarians to bridge the gap between subjects, not widen the divide. The attitude of respect and eagerness will make you invaluable to any team that you may find yourself on. As an example, I have P.F. Chang's behind me. It's a Chinese restaurant, nationwide chain. I've never been in. I've eaten here one time before, is a long time ago, so I don't have necessarily primary knowledge of their etiquette or food or the environment they create. But I will just say, for instance, this Chinese restaurant serves delicious, authentic Chinese food. Let's just say they're the best. Now, a common customer has the perception of just being a hungry American who enters perhaps with their large family. Their insights into Chinese culture come from media and past restaurant experience. Most likely Panda Express, P.F. Chang's would be maybe less common. They might go to Payway every week, so they're expecting, orange chicken. They don't understand that the menu may be more authentic with less uh, less ingredients that they're aware of, maybe different seasonings. So they might not enjoy their experience. They might not like what P.F. Chang's has to offer. But it's important for the restaurant that they end up leaving the restaurant satisfied. So if they're dissatisfied, it's probably because of their, uncertainty about what they were walking in on. As owners of PF Chang, you can't disparage your customers, your clientele, your customer base for not knowing the customs or common practices from that organization. You must understand that the client's viewpoints are different from your own, and in the restaurant industry, it is imperative to accommodate for others who may potentially have wrong viewpoints. So, given that example of how someone's insights might affect their experience, we can now investigate the text and the example provided within. So, I'll take from the second example where we have a local newspaper publishing an article about how they have rising climate in their area, rising temperature, and a changing climate in their local area. Obviously, there are a ton of factors that would um, potentially change how their temperature module is created. They could be taking from different statistics that maybe don't weigh some things as well as largely as others. Likely, if it's a newspaper or a local news station, they're probably just taking direct numbers from the daily temperature gauge. They're not actually going into the in-depth um, what would it be astronomical weather climatize. That's it's a whole thing in particular. So the guy creating, or female creating that article, probably hasn't done enough research to publish an article with founded research. But you can still take that article and add it to your database of your knowledge, and you can make someone's article, maybe that's half cocked and and published, and you can create your own insights from that. You can take their perspective and they can help you build your own as well. Obviously, it's a serious matter when it's dealing with people's livelihoods in a local area, and there's oftentimes a common solution for why the temperature is rising. Many cases can be brought up about how counties near big cities have rising temperature, and that is actually very common. That a large city will create a different atmosphere unaccustomed to that area. So, a large city like Dallas, where I'm living, as it's growing larger, it's creating its own climate that will bring in more humidity, even though it's relatively a low humidity city. So we can see from one article how their findings, although just, may actually represent the issue invalidly. So once again, we must never dismiss someone's thoughtful questioning, research, or findings. Rather ask, what progress will this enact? Is this question valid? Will those insights further the research and the field of study? All these questions will help elevate your critical understanding of the subject matter, and taking a grain of salt into those maybe less structured research papers that you can then use to build your own credentials is very important in having success in your further in y'all's careers. The prompt of the discussion is identify the limitations of the disciplinary's perspectives to comprehensively understand a topic of your professional interests. So my one of my main attractions to interdisciplinary studies is bridging the gap between the industries, and how if we can work together, we will have much more success. Probably from my history of playing sports teams and in the Marine Corps, no one does anything by themselves. It takes a village to accomplish a goal. Speaking of taking it takes a village. I went to Panama twice, once in 2012 and once in 2014, and we would build windmills in Panama, right on the eastern coast. And they're one of their biggest issues was fresh water. So this windmill would draw from the aquifers below and bring up fresh drinking water for them. And not only did we send 20 people to go down there and evangelize as well as help build these windmills, it took the village to come out and help us, and it was a very great bonding experience for them. So, anyways, the topic I want to discuss is monocrop agriculture and its damage to our American society. To start, I will say that my emphasis is in business, Spanish, and political science, and we will encounter a lot of overlapping solutions that could potentially arise from integrating these fields of study. On their own, we're not really left with much. We're left with a hectic capitalistic industry that is stripping our planet of its ability to produce the foods that we so desperately desire. The fact of the matter is that we are not providing sustainable quality foods from our current model of agriculture. We've known this for decades, that our businesses are too hyper focused on production, thereby limiting our resources and sucking all of the minerals out of our topsoil. Our soil has never been worse than it is right now. We could go back in history and see why it's that way. We can go and look into the future based on other historical societies and what they've done to themselves. But the fact of the matter is that monocrop agriculture is not the answer to our earning question of how do we survive and thrive as a country. Furthermore, these Spanish companies are getting into the same problem. They are hyper focusing themselves on producing what is climately available for them. And then not only are they providing their own countries, but also bringing in internationally, bringing into America for production. And they have to compete with us. So they're cutting corners and the like. We don't want any of that. None of that leads to good preservation of our produce. And all the while, we're politically hamstrung. My poli sci background, we're all politically hamstrung by the FDA, other organizations, as far as exporting and importing goes, to provide perishable common goods at a price point that the American people are happy with. And that's just exactly the problem, is that we are chasing the dollar, but we're not chasing sustainability. And research will show that our pursuit has been an utter failure, and we cannot continue with the production that the means of production that we are currently doing. Monocrop agriculture is not the cycle that we want to get into. We want to get into something where it's more um, centered on maybe like a farm to table aspect would be one way to say it, where we have food being produced next to our cattle, and also having forests that will help mitigate the issues that we run into with monocropping. There's a ton of fields of study that are engaged actively in this, and if you care more about it, the more research you do, the smarter you'll be. So I implore you all to research monocropping, and you'll find that the issue isn't with any certain subject matter, any certain field, but it's the fact that we're not uh, integrating these fields. And when I say fields, I don't mean the crop fields, I mean fields of study. We're not integrating properly in order to solve this issue that is so giant. One of the problems with disciplinary insights, disciplinary perspectives, is that we lack multiplicity, in that we do not, all we do is absorb what we know, and then we don't experience any contradicting explanations for how we got here, and how our findings are relative to our field of study. So a key feature that we can have when integrating our fields of study would be, there will be a lot of conflicting insights. One reasoning for one thing being wrong will be different from another. And all of that reasoning only leads to good, only leads to a more complete judgment. So that's one of the many reasons why disciplinary points of view are conflicting. Now, I think the most important part to take away from disciplinary studies, and that the fact that they are subject matter experts, they do spend their entire lives cultivating their knowledge, and we can't just dismiss them. We have to integrate them. We can't just put them on the outside like, yeah, sure, you might be have a PhD in whatever, but you do not have this knowledge here. So if you just, rather than isolating people, you have to be a welcoming face for your organization, whatever it may be. In my situation, it'd be monocropping, and it's going to be hard to convince people to work together, but I think we can be done, and I think that with the right mindset, monocropping could be a thing of the past.